You've almost certainly met this creature before. A sleek fox with many tails, beautiful and a little dangerous. She's a video game assassin, a Pokémon, the monster sealed inside a cartoon ninja. The nine-tailed fox is everywhere now, usually as something cool or cute or sexy. But the original was none of those things. She was a demon who wore the face of a perfect woman and used it to bring whole kingdoms crashing down. By the time anyone realized what she was, a country was already dying. This is the story of how the most charming creature in folklore became its most dangerous, and why, in 2022, a lot of people in Japan were genuinely afraid she had come back. Let's start with the basics, because foxes in Japan were never just animals. In the old stories, a fox that lives long enough stops being a simple creature and starts becoming something else. It learns to make fire, to throw its voice, to slip into human shape. The longer it lives, the more powerful it gets, and you can read its age in its tails. A young fox has one, a truly ancient one, the kind that has watched 1,000 years go by, has 9. 9 tails means the very top of the ladder. A fox with the power of a minor god, and very little reason left to fear anything at all. Now, not every fox was a monster. Some were the messengers of a harvest god, watching over the rice fields and the shrines, and people left them offerings out of real respect. But there was another kind, the wild fox, the one that belonged to no god and answered to no one. These were the tricksters and the predators. They could crawl inside a person and wear them like a coat. They could spin illusions so complete that you would never know you were dreaming. And the nine-tailed fox sat at the dark end of all of it. So beautiful, it was treated as a sign from heaven. And so hungry, it was remembered as something that swallowed men whole. The legend did not even start in Japan. It started in China centuries earlier with a fox that decided to topple a dynasty. The story goes that a nine-tailed fox slipped into the body of a young woman named Daji, and Daji became the favorite of the king. She was enchanting, and the king lost himself in her completely. Under her influence, he turned cruel, inventing horrifying punishments, draining his kingdom to please her, ignoring everything in the world but her. By the time it was over, an entire dynasty had collapsed, and the woman at the center of it had never really been a woman at all. And here is the unsettling part of the legend. The fox did not die when that kingdom fell. It simply moved on. The old tales trace it across the map, surfacing in India at the side of another doomed prince, then drifting east, century after century, always looking for its next throne to ruin. Eventually, it crossed the sea to Japan, and there it found the most powerful court in the country, and reached for the same trick it had always used. It became a beautiful, brilliant woman, and it waited patiently to be invited in. They called her Tamamo-no-Mae, and by every account, she was perfect. She was stunning to look at, but that was not even the strange part. She was impossibly learned. Ask her about scripture, history, poetry, music, the movement of the stars, and she would answer without a pause, as if she had already lived several lifetimes of study. The emperor was captivated. He kept her close, he listened to her, he trusted her above almost anyone in the palace. And nobody at that glittering court could have guessed that the woman lighting up every room was casting a shadow with 9 tails in it. Then the emperor fell ill. Not an ordinary sickness, but something the doctors could not name and could not touch. Night after night, he burned with fever and wasted away. And nothing anyone tried made the slightest difference. The court grew desperate, and slowly, quietly, people began to notice that his decline had started right around the time a certain dazzling woman had arrived among them. Nobody dared say it out loud. Suspecting the emperor's beloved of being something inhuman was a very good way to destroy yourself. So they called in a specialist, a court diviner trained to read omens and to unmask the things that hide. He studied the signs, ran his calculations, and arrived at an answer that nobody wanted to hear. The emperor was not cursed by bad luck or angry ancestors. He was being drained on purpose by the woman he loved. To prove it, the diviner arranged a sacred ritual that a true human could stand through, but a disguised spirit could not. And the moment it began, Tamamo-no-Mae's beautiful mask finally slipped, and the whole court saw the fox underneath. She ran. In a single blink, the perfect court lady was gone, and a fox was racing north into the wild plains of Nasu. The emperor sent his finest warriors after her, a full hunting party, armed and furious, chasing a creature that had outwitted kings for 1,000 years. It was not quick, and it was not easy. But out on that open moor they finally cornered her, and an arrow and a blade brought the nine-tailed fox down at last. After 10 centuries, and the ruin of who knows how many lives, the great fox was dead. Except that is not where the story ends, because something was left behind. Where the fox fell, the legend says, her rage and her power soaked into the ground and hardened into a single black stone. And that stone was not safe to be near. Birds that landed on it dropped dead. Travelers who lingered too long never walked away. People called it the sessho-seki, the killing stone, and they learned to keep their distance. The fox had died, but whatever made her dangerous had not. It had simply changed shape and stayed in the world, waiting quietly by the side of the road. For a long time, the stone just sat there, killing quietly. Then, the story goes, a wandering monk came to Nasu and decided to face it. Instead of fearing the stone, he spoke to it, performing the rites for the dead and offering the trapped spirit a way to let go of all that anger. And according to the legend, it worked. The spirit finally answered him, the poison loosened its grip, and the curse that had clung to that place for generations was, at last, laid to rest. The monster had been mourned instead of fought, and somehow that was what finally calmed it. Here is where the folklore and the real world quietly touch. The Killing Stone is an actual place you can visit, sitting in a stretch of volcanic ground in Nasu where the earth hisses and the air smells of sulfur. That valley genuinely can be dangerous. The volcanic gas seeping out of the rocks really can kill small animals that wander too close. So underneath the legend of a murderous fox stone is a very real warning about a very real patch of poisoned ground. The story wrapped a true danger inside a monster, the way these old stories so often do. Which brings us to the morning, in early 2022, when people arrived at the Killing Stone and found it broken in two. The rock that had supposedly held the fox's spirit for centuries had simply split down the middle, its two halves sitting open in the snow. The internet did exactly what you would expect. Within hours, people half joking and half serious were saying the seal had failed. The spirit was loose, and a 1,000-year-old demon had just been released into the modern world. Officials had a calmer explanation. Water had seeped into a crack and frozen, and the stone had finally given way. But calm explanations never travel as fast as monsters, and soon after, local priests held a ceremony at the site, just to be sure. So why has this fox lasted so long, when most monsters simply fade away? Maybe it is because she was never really about claws or fangs. The nine-tailed fox is the fear that the most beautiful, most charming thing in the room is exactly the thing you should run from, that a perfect face can hide something ancient and patient and hungry. We have turned her into a game character, a cartoon, a cute little emoji, and maybe that is just our way of taming her. But the old story is still out there in Nasu, in two pieces now, in a valley where the ground really does kill. So the next time you meet something that seems a little too perfect, you might think of the fox and wonder, just for a second, how many tails it is hiding. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and leave a like. It really helps, and I'll see you in the next one.